Welcome back to Your Story Medicine. Today I am with Tara Moraleda, who is a visionary artist and abundance coach living on the magical land of Maui. She was raised going to Burning Man and has a diverse background in film, mathematics, and modeling. Whoa. Tara moved to Hawaii on an intuition and spent 150 days in silent meditation and launched a successful coaching business shortly thereafter. She is here to make money magical again, especially for the broke artists. We are breaking that stereotype, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
While perpetuating stereotypes like being good at math, which is not me. Why? Because prior to this I was like 150 days, how many months is that? I had to bust out my calculator and I was like, dang girl, 5 months.
Yeah,
I thought 10 days of vipassana was long.
I know.
So this is
Yeah.
going to be so fun. Okay, so Tara,
Mm.
in your own words, how would you describe your medicine?
Mm. My medicine is the remembrance that the soul is the most potent piece of ourselves. And when we can operate from that level, from the level of deep knowing, the level of remembrance, the soul level, then everything else is easeful and graceful. So, my medicine and how to get there is through meditation. And then to make an impact with that is through money.
Okay, so meditation and money can coexist with one another.
Facts.
Ah, but it wasn't always this way. So
Nope.
before
Right.
we dive into that,
Mhm.
you and I have shared space in other conversations about this, especially in connection to how so much of our abundance mindset is influenced by our ancestors and our parents. So tell us, what is your ancestral lineage and how has this influenced your medicine today?
Yeah. So on my dad's side, my dad is Filipino, born and raised in the Philippines on a bed of dirt he was born upon. And my dad has always gotten into get rich quick schemes. And on my mother's side, she's the daughter of a famous pastor in the Midwest. So that's where the meditation comes in. And then with my dad, I always saw time and time again that his get rich quick schemes didn't work. He ended up in jail a couple times in his life. And I was just like, okay, like he's on to something with like really passionately going after the money, but not doing it in an aligned way that I saw my mom's side of the family do. And that's like through spirituality, through my grandfather, who is a pastor, was super into meditation as well. So I kind of feel like I took in both sides, like the meditation, the spirituality from my mother's side. And then I took in the like, well, let's get really creative with the ways that we make money. And that's where like the visionary art comes in, the Burning Man, the festivals, like that's where I got all of that from my dad's side.
Okay, I have questions.
Okay.
Mainly because, okay, I am somebody who was raised in a Buddhist household, but went to a Christian school
Mm.
on weekdays. And I was the weird kid who would meditate in the middle of the playground. And my teachers would tell me to not do that because it wasn't Christian like or whatever. And by the way, the only reason why my parents sent me to that private school was because it was the only school that had early morning childcare and late evening childcare. I was the first to get picked up and the last to get dropped off. I'm sorry, the first to get dropped and the last to get picked up constantly. And
Mhm.
so when I hear that on your mother's side and your grandfather being active meditators, I'm like, oh, that's very interesting because I find that there's a lot of people of the Christian faith who might see that as not being in alignment with the teachings.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my grandfather, he wrote a book on transcendental meditation, and the church didn't want him to release it. And I'm not sure, I was raised Christian. I don't follow Christianity um, completely by the book, but I do find it interesting that I personally believe that one of the most clearest and direct access that we can have to God and to the bigger picture is through meditation. And I find it interesting that, the Christian church didn't want my grandfather to release this book.
And so, how did your mom end up at Burning Man?
My mom was the black sheep of the family. She was also an artist, but it was my grandfather. I mean, not my grandfather. It was my dad who really was like, let's go to Burning Man. I grew up in the Bay Area, and like, it was just like, I think the way that my parents saw it was like this, oh, let's just go out and explore this art festival for a week in the desert with our kids and the Volkswagen and just like go camp and explore art. And um, my mom was really open-minded in that way. And I think even like with my grandfather being of the church, but so into meditation, like he was also very open-minded as well. I think to dive so deep into meditation, even though it seems like such a rigid experience, it's actually a very mind-opening experience.
So, did you grow up as a child who meditated with your family on a regular basis?
You know, it's I never really saw my mom or dad meditate too much. However, I have photos of myself like 4 years old, like sitting and meditating. And like it was funny. I didn't move to Hawaii until I was 20, but I was like wearing hula skirts and like sitting down meditating and have all these images of that when I was just like 4 years old. So I was definitely like onto something at a young age.
Yeah, yeah. When I was growing up at the Buddhist temple on the weekends, I had one monk who would actually let the kids be released from meditation to go and play, and the adults would get mad at him. They were like, "Oh, you're supposed to be teaching these kids how to meditate." And he was like, "Actually, you guys are the ones that need it." And it's like for us as children, even for when we were playing, that within itself was a form of meditation where we weren't attached to any outcomes, and we could be in that flow. And so I feel like now that I'm in my 30s or now that I'm an adult, that is something that I'm returning to. But play is even more magical with the meditation practice.
Totally, totally. Because all meditation is doing, well, it's doing so many things, but it's just bringing us back to the present moment. And the present moment can be whatever you want it to be. And whether it's like you're returning to play or returning to feeling or pleasure or whatever, it's not just this like rigid, like sit and be boring. It's actually like this really magical experience of being like, oh my God, there's so many sensations in every single moment. What do I want to feel?
Yes. So, how did you end up in Hawaii then? Tell us about that journey and the magic that has unfolded since you have chosen to root yourself there.
Mm, yeah, I remember being just a teenager and hearing about Hawaii, and I just remember my eyes like sparkling and be like, wow, Hawaii, this place in the middle of the ocean where you can like kayak and swim in the ocean, and there's rainbows and waterfalls. And I remember thinking like, I want to go to Hawaii and being so in like entranced by it and really wanting to like go and experience this magical land. And my older brother moved out here when I was a teenager, so I think my first trip was to come and to visit him and to see the land. And I went to Big Island, and I just remember being like, wow, this place is unlike anything else that I've ever felt before. And that's when my love affair began. And I would make my way out like once, twice a year, three times a year over the course of my early 20s until finally I got this like really clear message. I was deep into meditation, living in Northern California, living out in the woods. And it was like, move to Maui alone. And I was in this amazing partnership at the time, and I really loved my life. And I was like, what? Move to Maui alone? And I just remember being so like in this like I'm so confused because I'm happy, I'm stoked, I'm healthy, I love my life. Why would I break up with my boyfriend and move to Maui alone? I don't really, it's like I love Hawaii, I love Maui, but really I like Big Island. Kauai is really cool. Why Maui? And the messages kept on coming clearer and clearer through, even though my mind like wrestling with me and creating all this suffering. And then the deepest part of myself was like, you're going to do this. So I trusted that intuition because time and time again, that intuition has always proven to be true. So I bought a one-way ticket and shipped my car. And then when I split my finances with my partner in my bank account, I had $1,111.11. And I was like, this must be a joke. How did this happen? Not how small the amount was, but like the numbers. And I flew out here and really didn't know too many people, didn't know where I was going to work, didn't know where I was going to live, but I knew I'm like, worst comes to worst, I can, go back to the mainland. I'm smart. I can get a job somewhere. I can figure this stuff out. So I just showed up and shortly thereafter, like, got a job at an art gallery and lived in a tiny yurt where I paid rent for $360. And it felt like so, like, I was just like, okay, I'm in a yurt, I'm in the jungle, I'm working at an art gallery, we're making this happen. And then it was shortly thereafter where I found the meditation retreats and I sat my first 10-day, and I just knew that that was the medicine that I needed and that also the world needed. So I dedicated myself to the craft and ended up on, the 150-day journey of meditation.
It's so interesting how you say this is what the world needed, because I feel like, especially in the times that we're in, there's this narrative that we need to be out there fighting for the cause if we want to see change. And granted, yes, we all have a place, but why stillness? How is that a contribution to systemic change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this world, many people are fighting for change. And in the process of fighting, like our bodies are tight and we're like not creating peace when we're fighting for change. So if we actually want to see and experience and have peace in the world, we need to have that within ourselves first. And then once you're an example of that, once you can embody that, people learn just by being around you. People learn just by witnessing you. So it's like, yeah, meditation, I have found time and time again, it's like we're dealing with the mind. We're unwiring and we're unraveling all of these stories of unworthiness and not enoughness and how we need to fight in order to create peace. It's like all of those are just narratives in the mind that aren't serving the whole.
So let's also explore how this correlates with being able to generate abundance in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly, you're meditating for 150 days, you're living in a yurt, paying $360 a month for rent and working at an art gallery, and it's so easy to romanticize that life. I mean, I've been there too. We've talked about this before. I'm like, in my 20s, I could sleep in $3 hostels a
Mhm.
night and be happy until you get to a point where you realize, okay, unless I'm going to dedicate my life to being a full-time monk and asking for donations from people, I'm not so sure if this is sustainable. So, where was the shift for you in moving from that broke artist mindset into, okay, I think it's time for me to make some money?
Mhm. Yeah. Something that I want to touch on is the biggest realization that comes from, not the biggest, it's one of the realizations that comes from meditation is remembering that you don't need anything. Like you can sleep in $3 hostels, you can pay $360 for rent, you can literally have very, very, very little and realize that just being alive is enough. And where most people get caught in the meditation, like monastic lifestyle of renouncing desires and remembering it's like, oh, I don't need anything. This is amazing. It feels so freeing to feel like you don't need anything at all. But then you cannot need anything and still go after your desires. I don't need millions of dollars. I don't need Instagram followers. I don't need a gold bathroom in my in my home, but I have, like, I'm on the path. Like I do have a gold bathroom in my home. It's
Yes,
amazing.
I've seen it.
And it's like realizing like, oh my gosh, this is just such a game. I don't need any of these things, but I can fully go after these desires. So when I broke out of the like, oh my God, I have $0 in my bank account and I'm meditating. This is cool, not cool. This is what it is. I feel abundant on the inside, right? So on the inside. And then I got to a point where I'm like, well, this is actually quite frustrating because this is quite frustrating of like, okay, I have no money in my bank account and but I feel really abundant on the inside. Like I feel so abundant, but I want everybody else to feel this abundance as well. If you have no money or if you have a ton of money, I was like, I want people to feel this. And I came to this realization that no one's going to listen to a broke artist, but people listen to people of status and power, and to make a bigger impact, as big of an impact as I want on the world, money gets to be a part of that. So I started diving into all of the books around finances, around abundance. To people listening now, a book that I would really recommend is Creating Money. And that's all around the financial laws of abundance and, or like the energetic laws of abundance. And once I started to dive deep into this work, I just realized how my whole life, the stories that I was born and raised with around like, you have to work so hard for your money. And once you make money, you need to save the money. And to all of this fear that was instilled around this piece of paper and this number, when I realized all of the charge that came with it, I was like, I don't want that charge anymore. I want to make an impact and I want to have a healthy relationship with money, and I want others to feel this as well. So that was the transition of like, okay, in order to have people actually experience this abundance from the inside out, I gotta change. I gotta be able to fall in love with money too. And that became a huge part of my medicine that I'm offering to the world.
In the process, have you also experienced the relationship that your parents have with money shift as a result?
Yeah. I I think it's I think my mom is still catching up to it, but I do remember having my first 10K month and feeling nervous to tell my mom about it. I was like, "Oh, she's gonna judge me that I am having a 10K month." And I remember like her shock and her awe and also her like, "Wow, like good for you." Her congratulatory state. And I think that she's kind of realizing more and more that like I'm here to make a really big impact. And I've just felt her support the entire way. And that was actually something that I wasn't expecting. So that I'm rewiring the way that I think my parents are responding.
Yeah. What about your father, who was the artist hippie who influenced your mom to go with him to Burning Man?
You know, to be completely honest, I don't like to tell my dad about my finances.
Hmm.
Um, and to be completely honest, it's because he's still coming out of debt from being in jail, and I've gave him a bit of money, and I don't want to be completely transparent about how much money I'm making with him because I actually don't feel like that would be healthy for our relationship. So that's something, you know, I can share this with, you know, if he'll ask, like I'll tell him, but I'm not going out of my way to share these results with him.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like for those of us who are breaking these intergenerational cycles of poverty or money mindset, it's so easy for us to have a desire to be able to want to help the people that we love. But also, if there is an energy that's tied to money, then there can be a codependent relationship that's formed from that experience. And so, creating boundaries with our loved ones, with our friends, and our families as we are choosing to walk this path, I have found has also been such a spiritual process in I don't like to say like learning to value myself because there's no monetary currency necessarily to my worth, but both you and I have experienced that abundance has also been a byproduct of creating healthy boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what is a money ritual that you have been practicing in your life aside from meditation?
Yeah. So a huge money ritual that I love and would really listening is to really a money ritual that I would really love to share with you all is to treat money as if it was a person in your life. And the relationship that I have with money right now is it's like me and my inner child. So I like the way that I love money comes from like the deepest, most playful part of my heart where I'm like, money, I love you so much. Like, thanks for like helping me buy food and this beautiful place that I get to live in. And oh my gosh, we can go on a trip if we want. We can invest into anybody who can help us up level. And wow, look at this beautiful place that we live in. Oh my gosh, I don't have to worry about money. So like we can go to the waterfall today. We can get a new surfboard if we want. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I find that the more that I do this practice, money like wants to hang out with me. It's like I don't feel like I have to try and grasp and like force clients to pay me. It's like money wants to come into my life and I'm just in full surrender and acceptance and gratitude of this energy that continues to show up for me. So that's a huge money ritual. And something else that I would love to offer is before all of the gratitude comes, there's also so many stories that we get rid of. So not, I wouldn't say every full moon, but full moons where I like just like feel whatever layers of scarcity that have come through around like, ooh, like I didn't put money aside for taxes. Am I going to be okay? Or, oh my gosh, that one person didn't pay me back in time. Like any forms of scarcity that I've felt come up, I'm just like, oh, I release that. I release that just by sitting and writing it down. And then I will actually burn the piece of paper. I will say, like, okay, these are all the thoughts. And I literally watch them burn away.
Ooh, yeah, I have found forgiveness to be such an important ritual. And it's more so for myself. And I think because both you and I have our own businesses as well, where there needs to be an exchange of money if we want our legacies to grow. It's like, oh, if somebody doesn't pay me or forgets or totally ghosts on me, instead of being angry about it, like, oh, this person took advantage of me, I've had to sit with that deep forgiveness and also reflect on where is it that I was responsible for allowing that boundary to be crossed in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, whew,
Yeah. Yeah. And to also not take it personal, like to not take like if some specific person forgets to pay you or if a boundary was crossed, like it's just a reflection of what's happening inside of them. And then also being gentle with ourselves if we become judgmental about like the situation as well.
yeah, someone else shared a mantra with me, which was there's more of where that came from.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
um, so actually, what is the difference between abundance and money then? And if you could support us with redefining what money or abundance is, what would that be?
Hmm. Yeah. So abundance is it's a feeling, it's a state, it's the remembrance that there is enough and there will always be enough. And to see that in everything in your life. Like, I have a bed, like the ability to see, the ability to feel, just being alive is enough. That is abundance. Remembering that you don't need anything and it's a gift to be here. And then money is the fuel that gets to channel through us so we can support ourselves with bringing our gifts forth. Money's just here to bring our gifts forth. And whether that comes in the form of like, okay, now I have enough money to buy a nice bed so I can sleep more deeply, so then I can wake up recharged and write the book that I've been wanting to write my whole life. Like, money is just here to support us in bringing our gifts forth. So it's a currency and it's supposed to flow in through you and flow out of you. It's not something that we're supposed to hold on to. But the feeling of abundance is something that you get to experience and hold on to. So abundance is a feeling, money is an energy.
Yes, and something that I have been learning is that money becomes the byproduct of us living in abundance.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I know that you are, aside from being a mathematician, and a model, you're also a poet. And so, what are words of wisdom that you can share with us?
Okay, so I wrote this poem when I was like deep in meditation, and I was probably on my like 108th day in meditation, and I had this poem flow through me about being a dual being, how we're like, one moment we're up and we're partying late, and sometimes we're like waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning to meditate. And I was really struggling with thinking, like trying to put myself in a box of how I was supposed to be. And then I like came to this awakening of like, oh my God, I can be whatever I want. Like I can be a successful businesswoman and I can also stay up late, like twerking on the dance floor. I can have
Yes.
it and do it all. So I wrote this poem and it goes, I choose both. jungle queen and city scenes, dirty feet and clean sheets, overalls and sexy chic. Life's too short to be one thing. So, I'm a chameleon that stands out. I'm a nobody with high clout. I can be in silence and I can shout. I live the question without a doubt. Duality is the name of the game. So I'll play it wild and I'll play it tame. Always changing, but really the same. I'm wandering down a single lane with the sunshine in the rain. I'm crying with the cosmic joke. I'm taking a nap and I'm super woke. Always sober, I'll take a toke and forget all these words I ever wrote.
Hey, I see you, future ancestor. We are ancestors in the making, sharing the words that our younger selves need to hear, that the next generation needs to hear, that you can shake your booty and be a bodhisattva.
Yes.
And also, I just wanted to say how much I love your name, Tara, because my first business was called Green Tara Guidance. And if you're familiar with that goddess, Green Tara, she is such a badass. She is that deity, one of the few female bodhisattvas who um, yeah, just challenges the stereotype of needing to be quiet and petite. And if you see an image of her, she is actually like, it looks like she's gently stepping off of a lotus. But if you read the text, she's actually stomping her foot, waking people up into their power. So
Ooh.
thank you so much, Tara, for waking us up into our own abundance codes and acknowledging that there is absolutely enough for all of us to go around.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah. Jim McKay, thank you so much for having me.
Hey. So
Mm.
where can people go and find you to explore more about your medicine?
Come hang out with me on Instagram at Tara Morelove, TaraMorelove.
Yes. And one more thing. Tara built a successful business before even having a website. So if the technical stuff is bothering you, come back into alignment and know that our ancestors did not even have the internet and they were all entrepreneurs prior to colonization. Go back to connection. That is how legacies are built.
Boom.